So, as promised, I am going to do a video of some of my record collection, kind of carrying on the sort of slow building videos of all of my collection. So we did the A's, we did the B's. The B's was kind of a sort of stream of consciousness type video, and I'd done a live stream of it because I was lazy. But this time I'm going to do kind of an edit, like I was going to do for the A's, and so here we are. By the way, I would like to show off my beautiful Christmas lights. I also have my beautiful little Christmas tree over here. Just my cute little decorations. I have a few more, but I need to go get them, and I probably will tomorrow, so yeah, because I have like a little Charlie Brown Christmas tree, just like a little miniature one. It's probably like that tall, maybe. Yeah, it's probably that tall. But he's cute. I like to sit it right here by my turntable, so... but at some point, I want to show off my vinyl setup. We might do that when my room isn't a trash heap. But yeah, we'll definitely show that off at some point. I would love to show that off. So yeah. Alright, so without further ado, so these are the C's. Well, hold on. There we go. Yeah. It's backwards for me, but it's forwards on the camera. So C's! Yay! C's. I was gonna do C's and D's, but the C's are pretty big. It's mostly like Mariah Carey and the Carpenters and stuff like that. There's some Cher in there too, so I'm really excited about the C's. Like this is gonna be a fun one. They're always fun, but I like this. So okay, so first we're gonna look at the elusive chanteuse herself, Miss Mariah Carey. This is her debut album from 1990. This is an original pressing. None of these are the new represses from this year, because she kind of rolled out this whole 30th anniversary thing in honor of this album turning 30 this year. I kind of have to tilt the album just a little bit, just because my light, it reflects off of here, or I can just do it like that. There we go. So here's the back cover. It's a picture of her, and it's kind of old school looking. This is a great album. I'm trying to fix it. There we go. I love this album, and it's actually probably the first Mariah album that I really fell head over heels for. Mariah Carey is a really interesting artist to me. She's very fascinating as a person. I definitely would love to do a video on her and her discography, and maybe even rank some of her albums. There's quite a few that I don't really like that much, but this is not one of them. I love her 90s stuff. It's just a really quintessential 90s sound. But this, on the other hand, is probably more 80s than 90s, because, you know, it's kind of like I've noticed with a lot of the music that I listen to, that's from like 1990, 91, the 80s sort of bled into the 90s a little bit, just a little bit, and it also applied to not only music but also the fashion as well. Like the big hair was still a thing, and the shoulder pads and everything, that was still a thing in 1990. So Miss Thing had big hair too. Not as big as it was probably a couple years prior to this, but yeah. So this is an original pressing. I got this. I actually can still see vaguely on this sleeve here, because this is a sleeve that came with the album. I bought this on Discogs back in 2014, and according to this, it says $15. I wiped it off so that way it would be clear. But you can, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can kind of, it's like right along here. There's some markings here. You can faintly see it. There we go. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. I bought it for $15. on Discogs. I was really excited about it, um, as I was with a lot of Mariah albums, and I spent a lot of money on her albums, an ungodly amount of money that I shouldn't have spent, but I did anyway. Here is Emotions. This is Mariah's 1991 album. This was a sealed copy. It's still in the cellophane. I just kind of opened the edge a little bit. I kind of wanted to keep it pristine, keep it in good condition, you know, all that sort of stuff, all that jazz. This, I feel like I'm in the minority when it comes to Emotions, because most people, they say like their favorite is like Daydream or Butterfly or the Emancipation of Mimi. Me, I think Emotions is her best album. And the reason I say Emotions is her best album, I think it has a lot to do with several factors. One is the fact that this album is probably her first one that sounds like it's from the 90s, or early 90s, I should say. It sort of got rid of the 80s-ness of her debut, which is not a bad thing. Like, her first album is really good, but her second album, there was a lot more emphasis on sort of the Korg M1, which is one of my favorite keyboards. I love that keyboard. It's a very, kind of has a plasticky piano sound. It's very quintessential to pop music of the early 90s, for sure. But I think another portion of the reason why I like it is because Mariah's vocals are just so, they fit in so absolutely well. I mean, it fits like a jigsaw puzzle. Like, she's like the missing puzzle piece. There you go. It just all comes out so perfectly. And I don't think she ever got this great ever again in her career. She's kind of reached it, kind of, but never quite touched it. And that's just my opinion, you know. Like, there's a lot of people, they have different opinions, and that's fine. But I think Emotions is her best album. It's very soulful. Her Motown influence pops up here. Her 60s, 70s soul influence comes up a little bit. A little bit of gospel comes up in here. It's not too gospel-y, because, you know, I'm not a religious person, not huge on gospel, never really have been huge on gospel, but I do love gospel inflections in pop and R&B music. You know, Aretha, Whitney, all of those girls, they pretty much started out in the church, and that's how they got a lot of their soulful influences, was through singing gospel. And Mariah kind of was in that vein. She didn't go to church, but she listened to some of the greats of soul and gospel music, and it really shows on this album, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's even a little bit of dance, a little bit of disco. Like, I get a little bit of a disco vibe from, like, Emotions, which is loosely based off of The Best of My Love by The Emotions, which was a really popular song from the 70s. But the ballads are just the best parts about this album. And sometimes with a lot of Mariah's albums, the ballads would just drag on and on and on, and it just seemed like they would never end. These, on the other hand, are just absolute ear candy. And You Don't Remember, Can't Let Go, If It's Over, So Blessed, Till the End of Time, The Wind, absolutely, probably my favorite closer of Mariah's ever. It's very jazzy, it's very loungy, and she just fits in so well into jazz. And I sometimes wish that she sort of experimented a little bit more with jazz in her career. She has a little bit. She's kind of flirted with it a little bit, but never to the extent of The Wind. And it really pains me that Mariah doesn't like Emotions, and she obviously glossed it over in her new book. And she even had some not so great comments about the track You're So Cold. It wasn't like full of vitriol or anything like that. It's just, she just doesn't really like it, doesn't care for it. And it makes me so sad, because this album is just a solid body of work. Just a pop masterpiece at its finest. I think it's amazing. Let me show you the inside of this real quick. Okay, so the inside. So we have this gorgeous picture of Mariah. My only complaint about this is that I wish it was in color, and I'm pretty sure the CD copy has this in color, but still gorgeous nonetheless. And then the layer sheet on the back. So the next one, I'm just going to take these out of the sleeve so that way they don't reflect so much from the light. This is her EP from 1992. This is MTV Unplugged. This is a special one in my collection because this is from South Korea, all the way from South Korea. I bought this from a seller in South Korea. This got imported from South Korea. Really just, yeah, it's a great little factoid, little anecdote that I like about this, about buying this album. I bought it along with Debbie Gibson's Body, Mind, Soul, which is a very rare, hard to find album to find on vinyl, and there's a couple tracks missing off that, but we'll get to that later. So MTV Unplugged, this was a live performance. This is, for a long time, this was really the only live performance that was ever recorded and released as an album. But it's a gorgeous EP. I guess my only complaint would be that I wish that it was a little bit longer and that it had more songs to it. But nonetheless, it's a great extended play. It's mostly pretty much a showcase of Mariah's early hits, and they're just kind of in a more acoustic, natural, and organic sound than, the synthesizer heavy early 90s sound that they so often had. But here's the back cover, and if you'll notice, the album cover is blown up from the CD cover. You can really notice it on the back cover, and if you look really faintly, you'll kind of see the liner notes that were from the CD, and they just sort of blackened the bottom of it and superimposed whatever, like some of the Korean stuff on the bottom and the copyright stuff for the vinyl. This vinyl was not that great sounding. From what I recall, it's been a while since I played this, and I've had it for a few years now. But this album, I want to try to get the repress that just came out. There was one at Target, and I think it's a red vinyl. I would love to have that one, and I think that one might be part of my Christmas that I buy for myself. So, but yeah, this is a really great album. I really like this. And of course, before I carry on, this basically mostly has all of her hits, but it also has a couple of gems on it. If It's Over, which is a track that she recorded for Emotions, she recorded that and wrote it with Carole King, which I think is really cool. And there's also the cover of the Jackson 5's I'll Be There, which ended up becoming yet another #1 for Mariah Carey out of her now 19 #1 hits. But I especially love the acoustic vibe that the album has. Obviously, with every Unplugged performance, that's the sort of nature that you have with that sort of set. But I love it nonetheless. So, okay, so the next one in the Mariah collection is Music Box. This is her 1993 album. This is also an original pressing as well. Most, if not all, of my 90s Mariah albums, and even some of my 2000s ones, actually, they're all original pressings. This album, I kind of like it. I love this image. Not so huge on this one. It's too tight of a close-up for me. The South Korean one kind of zooms out a little bit, and you can see the tendrils of her hair, and I think she has like her head, like her hand on her hair, and it's really gorgeous. And I just really hate that they used a close-up for this album cover. It's just not a very good album cover. I'm not really super huge on it. But Music Box. Music Box, it has a lot of highs, but it also kind of has a couple of lows on it too. It's more or less on the second side than anything. That's the problem I have with a lot of Mariah's albums, is that they start off really strong, and then by the second side they kind of teeter a little bit. That's my one complaint that I have about some of Mariah's albums. She has a lot of great tracks though, and she's a fantastic songwriter. so I can't really dog her albums too much, and I don't want to because I'm a fan of hers, of course. But you know, I can still be kind of critical about this. But um, yeah, this is a good album. Dream Lover, Hero, Anytime You Need a Friend, those are great. Music Box is gorgeous. I love Now That I Know. It's a dated track, but it's okay. I still love it. Um, Never Forget You is okay. Without You is great. I love her cover of Without You, which is I think his name is Harry Nilsson. It was his track. Just to Hold You Once Again is okay. It's not my favorite. I've Been Thinking About You. It's not as good as Now That I Know. It's also a dance track, but it's not as good as Now That I Know. And All I Ever Wanted is an okay track, but truly a great closer is the international track, bonus track on Music Box, which was Everything Fades Away, which was available on European pressings of Music Box. And I do believe that the repress also has Everything Fades Away that just came out this year. So I might try to get that soon. So there's Music Box. Okay, so this is one I had to pull out because I have a turntable in our dining room where we play Christmas music. So this is Mariah's Christmas album from 1994. It's just simply titled Merry Christmas. This is one of the few represses that I have in my collection. This is the repress from 2015. I love this pressing. Love it. As you can see, there's the insert here. I think most of these were probably from when she filmed All I Want for Christmas Is You, the music video. And here's this absolutely incredible red vinyl. So, Merry Christmas. I really like Merry Christmas. There's a few tracks that I could do without, but of course, you know, there's just a lot of great Christmas albums. You know, they're judged a little bit differently than regular secular albums, I guess you could say. But as a whole, it's a great album to put on. It's mostly a go-to when I am listening to Christmas music with my family. You know, they're not super huge on Mariah, but when it comes to Christmas music, they're not opposed to it at all, especially when All I Want for Christmas Is You is in the equation, which I think everyone loves, as I do, and it's a great, wonderful track. Beautiful, great poppy Christmas tune. A few other gems, like Miss You Most at Christmas Time. It's a great ballad that she wrote as well. And then you have some standard Christmas tunes like Silent Night, Oh Holy Night, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Some of the more gospel-y type tracks I'm not super huge on. As I said before, just not super huge on gospel. I like gospel-inflected pop, but I'm not really huge on like full-blown gospel music, even when it comes in the sense of Christmas. So there's Merry Christmas. And the next one that we have is 1995's Daydream. This is where things got kind of interesting because this one was like $75. I paid $75 for it back in 2014. I won it in an auction on eBay. I was over the moon that I actually managed to snatch a copy of Daydream on vinyl, especially an original copy. This was before the represses ever came out. The earliest repress that I can think of in recent years was in 2019, I believe, which was last year, for Vinyl Me Please, and before she rolled out the whole repress for the 30th anniversary. But it's great. I think this is a German pressing. It was only released in Europe on vinyl, and it's just a lyric sheet, nothing too crazy. The sleeve is noticeably flimsy, like a lot of 90s vinyl is, that I've noticed. I think it's just kind of an attribute to the fact that not a lot of people were buying vinyl in the 90s, and that's why they're kind of hard to come by these days now. Daydream, I really like, and like Music Box, it starts off really strong, and then it kind of dips a little bit towards the end. But unlike Music Box, there is a couple of really great gems towards the end, especially with the Daydream interlude, which is basically a shortened version of a remix of Fantasy, which that remix is amazing. And I think it's a great addition to the album. She also done a similar thing with Butterfly, with a Butterfly remix as an interlude. But I think there's maybe 3 tracks on here that I could do without, but for the most part, it's a great album, and it's got some solid bangers on it. Fantasy is one of them. Underneath the Stars is really pretty. It's kind of reminiscent of a lot of like 60s, 70s, more 70s, I think, like early 70s, like R&B type music. Her version of Journey's Open Arms is really good. I like One Sweet Day, Always Be My Baby, Long Ago, Melt Away, very Babyface type track. I'm surprised that he didn't produce this track. And Looking In, which is a great closer to this album. It's very dark, it's very moody. It's probably one of the darkest tracks that Mariah has ever written. And it's very indicative of what she was going through at the time with her husband at the time, Tommy Mottola, which was also the CEO of Sony. Yeah, this is just it's pretty good album, pretty good. It's not my favorite, but I think it's pretty decent. So, the next one is 1997's Butterfly. This one is also an original. I spent $120 on it back in 2015. Yes, you heard that right. $120. I did not have any bills to pay at the time. I was 21 years old, and I had money to spend, and this is where I spent it. And I spent it around my birthday, so I was like, well, happy birthday to me. So, this is very special to me. Also in really great condition as well. I was really pleased with how great this was well taken care of. So, this album starts off really strong. Side 1, completely immaculate. Second side, half of the second side is really good, and then it sort of teeters by after the Butterfly reprise of Fly Away. I don't care for The Beautiful Ones, which is a cover of the Prince track from his Purple Rain album. When I heard his version of The Beautiful Ones, I was like, why did Mariah make this sound so slow? It feels like watching a turtle crawl, basically. It's just, it drags, and it drags for like 7 minutes. And I'm not really super huge on Drew Hill as the featured artist. Other than The Beautiful Ones, Outside, and Whenever You Call, they're kind of eh. But the rest of the album is fantastic. I think it's a great album, honestly, despite the fact that there's a couple of tracks. I would say it's 4 stars out of 5, 8 out of 10. Same thing for Daydream. Well, I'd say it's probably about 7 out of 10. So, and I also have this version. This is a repress. When did this come out? Let me look. 2017? Yeah, 2017. I bought it on a whim. It's a picture disc version of this album. I ultimately decided to get it. This might be something that I might get rid of soon. I don't know. But it's really pretty. I really like it a lot. And this is also a numbered. I didn't know this was numbered. That's interesting. Here is the that's the image. It's the same one as the back cover. And then the picture disc, it just has just solid gold with the butterfly logo on it, and then the album cover itself on the side 1. I'm not really super huge on picture disc. They're not a great quality, but it's still, it's still worth having. So, and I was really excited to see that it got repressed. So, the next one that I have is Rainbow from 1999. This is, it's kind of an interesting album, to say the least. But still a decent, not too bad album. It's not as good as some of her other albums. This is where Mariah kind of started going downhill a little bit. Um, but I got this at the peak of my Mariah obsession, and I just had to have it. And honestly, the design of the album is so pretty. I love it. Um, let's see. I like Heartbreaker. Can't Take That Away is okay. Bliss is pretty good. How Much? Ex-Girlfriend. The remix of Heartbreaker is better than the original, in my opinion. Against All Odds, Crybaby, Did I Do That, Petals. Most of these tracks are decent. There's just a few that's kind of just, I could take or leave. But it's just kind of a sort of messy album, I guess you could say. But it was kind of a prelude of what was to come for the Glitter album, which was equally a disaster. I'm not huge on the Glitter album. I tried to get it on vinyl a long time ago, but I just never got around to it, and I don't really think I'm going to get it, honestly, just because I don't really listen to Glitter like that. But, you know, it is what it is. The next one that we have is Charm Bracelet from 2002. This is the album that came out after Glitter. This was kind of one of those, like, I bought this at my local record shop for $20. I haven't really listened to this album that much to really have a really good impression, but from what I gathered out of the couple of listens that I've gotten out of it, it's just not that great of an album, if I'm being honest, and it's the reason why this was not in my stack here, and it was actually in another stack of albums that I'm probably going to get rid of, unfortunately. But Charm Bracelet is just one of those albums. It's just kind of like, it's too adult contemporary, and she's not completely involved in this project, in my opinion. There's only maybe a couple of tracks on here that I really like. Boy, I Need You, and I liked Clown okay. Through the Rain is decent. Everything else is just kind of, it's just not, it doesn't have the same sort of vibe that some of her past albums have. But yeah, I might part ways with this one just because I never listened to it. I don't think I really have listened to it, to be honest. But I would like someone who actually does appreciate this album to have it in their collection. So, next one we have is The Emancipation of Mimi, which was her comeback album. This is a really good album, actually. I think it's really good, to be honest. And it came with this sleeve, lyrics, and in the front here, this gorgeous picture of Mariah. Yeah, this is definitely a comeback of all comebacks, honestly. 2005 was a really good year for both her and Madonna because they both had really great comeback albums. Emancipation of Mimi, the first three tracks are just solid bangers. It's Like That, We Belong Together, Shake It Off, just solid, absolutely solid. Mine Again, Say Something, Get Your Number, Circles, Joyride. It's really good. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, and I don't really listen to it that much, but it's still a really good album, and I really do think it's one of her best, and it's rightfully one of her most well-known albums now. And it's considered to be one of the best of the 2000s, and I believe We Belong Together was the #1 song of the 2000s, as it should be. So, then there's a huge skip. There was 2 albums after this, E = MC Squared and Memoirs of an Imperfect Angel, and I never really got into those 2 albums, and just never really got around to buying them, and they're just very, very expensive, and I already spent enough on my Mariah collection by that point, so I just kind of just gave up trying to get those. So, With that said, we skip over to 2015, 10 years later, with Number One to Infinity, which is sort of a sequel to her Number Ones album from 1998, which was a compilation of all of her Number Ones up to that point, and plus a few other tracks that she had recorded after Butterfly. Um, this is a really great set, honestly. I think this is a great place for beginners to start with if they're trying to get into Mariah. I think there's something in here, is there? Guess not. And it's got some really great pictures of Mariah over the years. And then we got these as well, and then the back just has lyrics on it. And I do believe that there is some like little, she basically goes into like detail about each track, and talks about where she was at when she wrote it, and why she wrote it, and what came to her mind when she wrote it, that sort of thing. Just really, really fascinating to look at, and it's definitely a gem to have on vinyl for sure. But yeah, I think it's really good. And it closes off with the track Infinity, which never took off really, but it's still a decent track nonetheless. But every single one of these tracks are all her Number Ones, and now she should have another Number One to Infinity, because now she has a 19th Number One with All I Want for Christmas. So, but at the time she had 18. Now there is some differences a little bit here. There's two tracks that are different. One is Someday, which is the MTV Unplugged version. Mariah, for some reason, just does not really like her early stuff. And, artists sometimes, they just don't vibe with some of their older material. And, that's just something that, it just happens, and you can't change their mind. And, maybe they have some emotions or feelings attached to it that they would rather not rehash. And for that, I can understand, but I think that the original version of Someday was really good. I like the New Jack Swing version. I like the album version. The MTV Unplugged version is okay, but it's kind of a disappointment that I wish she should have stuck with the album version, but I can understand her reasoning as to why she just preferred not to. Let me look and see what she said about it. One of my favorite songs when I was writing it for my demo. I remember being a kid and listening to it over and over on the subway after the studio sessions. I wish I could press rewind and delete some moments from the video and some of the overproduction on the debut album. That's why I included the version from MTV Unplugged on the album. So yeah, she thinks that the album was overproduced, which I could see why that would be. It definitely was very synth heavy, and it hasn't really aged well, understandably. But yeah, and then the fantasy version on here is actually the version she did with ODB, Old Dirty Bastard, from, I think he was in Wu-Tang Clan. So it has his rap verse on there, and yeah, so it's that version instead of the original version. But other than that, all of these tracks are all the same from the albums. So, oh, and I failed to mention that there was an album before Number One to Infinity that came out, and it was Me, I Am Mariah, the elusive chanteuse from 2014. That album never got a vinyl pressing until this year, and I was really tempted to get it, but I've been really strapped for cash this year, and I just haven't gotten a chance to get it. I'm just going to put that in the sleeve later. And finally, we'll finish with the Mariah collection. Here we go with Caution. This is her latest album from 2018. Amazing album. Honestly, it's one of her best. It really is one of her best. And it's definitely, for me, one of her best in many, 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 many years. I would say probably her best since maybe Emancipation and Mimi, but more probably towards Butterfly. But here is the gatefold, gorgeous picture, and then the back. I love the aesthetic of Caution. Yeah, this is a great album. Get the Fuck Out. That's a great track. Hear it all the time at the club, or used to before the pandemic, of course. With You is an okay ballad, but The other tracks just completely are just so much better in every regard. Caution is kind of reggae tinged. I kind of like it. It's really smooth and sexy. A No No, which samples Crush on You by Lil Kim, which I think is really cool. The Distance, one of our best tracks, best singles in many years. I really wish that this was a bigger single when it first came out. Giving Me Life is really good. It's really moody, really steamy, I guess you could say. One Mo Again, Eighth Grade, Stay Long Love You, Portrait. It's just solid, solid track after solid track. It's honestly, it's one of our best. I definitely would highly recommend it.